October 18th, 2016 will come to order. The time is 7:01 p.m. We're here except for Trustee Butts and Trustee Stevens. I believe they're out on a call. Mr. Cook, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to this agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Item 3 is the consent agenda. It's the approved Board of Trustees meeting minutes for October 4th, 2016. Bring into record approved PC minutes September 27th, 2016. And approve the bills payable run from October 5th through October 18th to the amount of $3,432.74. Would anyone on the board like to pull out any one of these items for discussion? Seeing none, I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 4 is new business, liquor license renewal. Matt, do we need a public hearing for a renewal?
Yes, well, no, do a public hearing, you recess and sit as the local liquors licensing agent. So then your determination is either to approve the renewal or to set the matter for a hearing. I will say that there's one preliminary matter, but let's go ahead and recess their meeting and sit as that body.
All right, we will recess the regular meeting and we will reconvene as the liquor board. The time is 7:03.
So board sitting as the local liquor licensing agent. Colorado is a dual licensing system. So you need a license from both the local municipality as well as the state. The only issue I see right off the bat with this is that it was turned in on 10/18, or no, that's today, it's 10/18, it was turned in on 10/12 of 2016. The license expires on 11/1 of 2016. One of the requirements for liquor licensing is that you need to have legal possession of the premises for a year. And although it's close, it's not quite that. So I don't know if we have the applicant here or a representative from the applicant.
Legal possession of that premise has been a long time, not a lot more than a year.
Oh, so board, it says, is the premises owned or rented? It says it's rented, and if it's rented, it says expiration of the lease date there. So it's one of the questions is, okay, is it the date of the expiration of license that needs to be a year from, or is it the date of the application? And neither of those dates in this case seem to do it. So my suggestion is that if the board were inclined, after looking at the rest of the factors here on the renewal application, they were inclined to approve it, that I would just approve it subject to proof from, I guess it would be the Mucky Duck Restaurant and Catering, that they do have legal possession of the premises from a year from either 11/1/16 or 10/12/16.
All right, thank you. Board, do you have any questions on that?
Who has their lease?
It would be who owns the El Paso building.
There's a copy of the lease.
I guess I don't understand the legal requirement around the real estate lease has to be coterminous with the liquor license.
In order to grant a liquor license, you either have to own the property or you have to have legal possession of it for a year. So
Preceding or following?
from either, I've seen it both ways, either from the expiration date of the license, saying from the next year of the license, they're granted for a year term. So they want you to have legal possession of the premises for 1 year. So my suggestion is, and I've had it both ways, I've seen it where the license actually expires on 11/1, the lease expires the following year on 11/1. I've also seen it done based on the application date. In this case, neither one of those.
Let's say they have a 5-year lease, and I think that
I'm going solely on what's signed here by the applicant. And this is not information the town fills in, this is information the applicant fills in. So, I mean, if the board's inclined to grant it, I don't have any heartburn at all over you granting it, subject to proof that they have the legal requirement, the legal possession for a year, because if for some reason they can't come up with that, then you're back to square one. So if they come up with it, it moves on.
All right, are there any further findings on this application, Renee?
No, no.
All right, we can recess the liquor board and resume our regular meeting.
Do we vote as the liquor?
Yeah,
Oh,
no
I thought we
recess.
voted as the board, okay. All right then,
move to approve the liquor license with the caveat that they will bring in proof that they have been in residence for 7.
board, any further discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right, we will recess the liquor board. Resume our regular meeting, the time is 7:08. Item B is the administrative roles, job duties discussion. The reason we are doing this is to clarify what are the duties of our interim town manager, clerk, and treasurer, and of the deputy clerk.
Mayor,
Please.
it might help just to know that this is my 7th day here, and Renee and I have been trying diligently over the last 7 days, in view of Renee's very busy schedule, to try to sit down and understand exactly what it is she does, and so that we have a better understanding perhaps of how we might be able to split those duties. So at this point, I don't have an answer or anything really to offer in terms of advice to the board,
Okay,
but we're still working on it.
what I would like to see formalized is Renee handling the agenda and attachments and taking record of the minutes at this meeting and at planning commission. And that we need to formalize. I think there's other duties that are gonna tend to be who is there, including dog licenses. We should probably also formalize that Renee can sign for business licenses when people come in and apply.
So, is our starting point for Mr. Pig is the clerk duties are to him, and then he delegates them down to the deputy, right?
That's the mindset that I've had going into this, yeah.
Right.
So until we get a better, as I said, we get a better understanding of what the duties really are.
So it sounds like we have a starting point, some duties that will be delegated down, and then I guess we can address more as you guys fine tune it.
Yeah.
And Mr. Pick is aware of his contract obligations.
Right, exactly.
How formal do we need to make the split of duties you just described versus allowing them to delegate between them as they work out, knowing the board's preference in those areas.
The reason, to formalize what I requested is so that if there's ever any question about, oh, these meetings aren't artificial because they weren't recorded by the clerk, they were recorded by the deputy clerk. I don't want that to be in question. I want that to be, everyone to know that we've approved that. Now, if Mr. Pick, chooses to take the minutes at some point, if Renee is not here, I would assume that as the clerk, that is a regular duty, but I think we need to make it official that the signature of the deputy clerk in this case.
Yeah. I think what we can do is, tomorrow I can sign something or do something, that will specifically and officially delegate to Renee the things that you've outlined there.
Well, and I think if we record that, have that in the minutes.
The way I'm reading a future agenda item later this evening is that we would probably have to formalize it
On this
on this
resolution,
resolution.
Yeah, the resolution's drafted using the term, that the board has authorized the delegation, which means that, the delegation can be made or can be retained.
Okay.
So,
But it's fill in the blank or as prescribed by the board, which would be,
I don't vote for a reason.
so can you repeat the,
what I want?
Yeah.
Minutes and board packet. And recording of, or agenda and board packet, and recording of minutes for board and planning commission. And authority to sign for business license.
check runs?
Check runs, because that could be delegated by the clerk, of course. I think check runs is okay.
Is there a better term for that? Or other financial duties?
Payables.
We could do AP because then you'd have your PO.
Thank you.
Okay? Board, is there any further discussion on this? All right, these will be added to the resolutions that are coming up next. And I would move that they are so put on the resolutions.
Let's wait till we get there.
All right, so item C is resolution 2016-10-18A, appointing the interim town clerk, interim town manager, and interim town treasurer. The resolution is before you. In this case, all those people are in the form of John Pick. Want me to read the resolution? Sure, why not? So this is a resolution appointing John Pick as town manager, town clerk, and town treasurer for the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado, pursuant to Colorado statute and the town of Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code, is vested with the authority of administering the affairs of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado. Whereas in CRS 31-4305 authorizes the appointment of a town clerk. Whereas Section 281 of the Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code provides for the appointment of the town clerk. Whereas CRS 31-4210, 31-4211, 31-4213, and 31-4214 address the office of municipal managers. Whereas on October 4th, 2016, the Board of Trustees accepted a proposed contract between the town and John Pick as an independent contractor to serve as interim town manager clerk. Whereas CRS 31-2301 statutorily establishes the duties of a town treasurer. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado as follows. Item 1, the Board of Trustees for the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado hereby appoints John Pick as interim town clerk. Item 2, the Board of Trustees for the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado hereby appoints John Pick as interim town manager. Item 3, the Board of Trustees for the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado hereby appoints John Pick as interim town treasurer. Item 4, The interim town manager, clerk, treasurer shall take an oath of office administered by the mayor, and within 30 days from the date of this resolution, furnish a surety bond in the amount of $100,000, the cost of said bond paid for by the town. Item 5, severability. If any article, section, paragraph, sentence, clause, or phrase of this resolution is held to be unconstitutional or invalid for any reason, such decision shall not affect the validity or constitutionality of the remaining portions of this resolution. The Board of Trustees hereby declares that it would pass this resolution in each part or parts thereof, irrespective of the fact that any one part or parts be declared unconstitutional or invalid. Item 6, repeal. Existing resolutions or parts of resolutions covering the same matters embraced in this resolution are hereby repealed, and all resolutions or parts of resolutions inconsistent with the provisions of this resolution are hereby repealed. Introduced, resolved, and passed at a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Green Mountain Falls on this 18th day of October 2016. Are there any questions on this resolution? I would move that we pass Resolution 2016-10-18A with the appointing of the town clerk, town manager, and town treasurer in the person of John Pick.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item D is Resolution 2016-10-18B. This is appointing the delegation of duties, deputy town clerk and deputy town treasurer. And I'll read that. This is a resolution appointing Renee Price as deputy town clerk and deputy town treasurer, and authorizing the delegation of certain town clerk and town treasurer duties to the deputy town clerk and deputy town treasurer for the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado, pursuant to Colorado statute and the town of Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code, is vested with the authority of administering the affairs of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado. Whereas CRS 314305 authorizes the appointment of the town clerk. Whereas Section 2-81 of the Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code provides for the appointment of the town clerk. Whereas CRS 314210, 314211, 314213, and 314214 address the office of municipal managers. Whereas on October, this one is, is this what we want? Yes, it is. Whereas on October 4th, 2016, the Board of Trustees accepted a proposed contract between the town and John Pick as an independent contractor to serve as interim town manager clerk. And whereas on October 4th, 2016, the Board of Trustees accepted a proposed contract between the town and John Pick as an independent contractor to serve as interim town manager, interim town clerk, and interim town treasurer. And whereas on October 18th, 2016, the board adopted resolution 2016-10-18A, appointing John Pick as interim town treasurer, clerk, and manager. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado, as follows. The Board of Trustees hereby appoints Renee Price as interim deputy town clerk and interim deputy town treasurer. The interim deputy town clerk treasurer shall take an oath of office administered by the mayor, and within 30 days from the date of this resolution, furnish a surety bond in the amount of $100,000, the cost of the bond paid for by the town. Item 3, the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the delegation of the following duties. Authorize the responsibility of the interim town clerk to the interim deputy town clerk. Item A is the preparation of the agenda and the board packet. Item B is the recording of the minutes for the board and the recording of the minutes for the planning commission. Is there any further? Oh, and item C, sign for business licenses. Item D, any and all other duties as may be prescribed by the Board of Trustees.
Mayor, did you want to add accounts payable as well to that?
We will do that in the next one under Deputy Treasurer.
Okay.
Item 4, the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the delegation of the following duties, otherwise the responsibility of the interim town treasurer, to the interim deputy treasurer, which is the accounts payable duties as assigned, and also includes any and all other duties as may be prescribed by the Board of Trustees. Item 5, all duties not specifically delegated by this resolution or otherwise delegated by the Board of Trustees to the interim deputy clerk treasurer remain the responsibility and duty of the interim town manager, interim town clerk, and/or interim treasurer. 6, severability. If any article, section, paragraph, sentence, clause, or phrase of this resolution is held to be unconstitutional or invalid for any reason, such decision shall not affect the validity or constitutionality of the remaining portions of this resolution. The Board of Trustees hereby declares that it would have passed this resolution and each part or parts thereof, irrespective of the fact that any one part or parts be declared unconstitutional or invalid. Item 7, repeal. Existing resolutions or parts of resolutions covering the same matters embraced in this resolution are hereby repealed, and all resolutions or parts of resolutions inconsistent with the provisions of this resolution are hereby repealed. Introduced, resolved, and passed at a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Fremont Falls on this 18th day of October, 2016. Board, do you have any questions on this resolution?
I do. As Renee is a permanent employee, not a contract employee, is it appropriate for the deputy role to be the interim role?
So the interim term simply means the rest of the remaining term. So after every biannual election, the board sits and appoints a town manager or a town clerk, marshal, your attorney, your judge, and you appoint that for the duration of this sitting board, so for 2 years. We're past that biennial election, so you're simply saying, we don't get to make the decision for the board that will be sat at the end of our term. So this current board, that I believe it's April of 18, right? After your next election, that's the term that you're doing it, so that it's clear that we're obviously not at the beginning of your term, we're partway through. You're appointing the manager and the clerk and the treasurer, and the deputy clerk and treasurer for the remainder of that term.
Thank you.
Board, are we satisfied with the paragraph that says all duties that are not specifically delegated or delegated by the Board of Trustees shall remain the responsibility of the town manager? Does that preclude the town manager, clerk, treasurer from delegating other duties?
So that's the board's decision. On the one hand, you have the option of saying, we hired a manager. If the manager deems it necessary to authorize the deputy clerk or the deputy treasurer to do other things, we put the trust in him and do it. The board's passed several resolutions that say we want the power to hire and fire, we want to have more control, more direct control. I guess that coupled with the language in D that says any other duties that the Board of Trustees says hold the power with the board rather than delegating more power to the manager. So.
Matt, why is whereas 5 and 6 basically the same?
I think initially, one of those talked about the interview process, but
They both accepted it for both contracts.
yeah, and I think when I reread it, that I took out the interview time. So if the board wants to strike either of those, I think I would probably strike the second one if the board's inclined.
I don't know if it matters, but in the contract, I don't know that there was a mention of treasurer.
Yeah, that's part of the reason I would suggest maybe striking the second from bottom whereas.
Okay, yeah, I think we should take that one off, since it does list treasurer, and we made it very clear that there's also a town treasurer. Board, are you satisfied with the delegation of duties?
I am.
Right,
One other question on the surety bond. I'm assuming this requires a separate surety bond for the deputy clerk.
You know, I think this is a good time for you guys to touch base with Sir. So I think previously your bond, the current bond is made 50,000, and it's through travelers. And I've heard from town staff that that's not a really easy connection to make, despite efforts. I do know that Sarsa bonds, you already have your insurance through them. I wouldn't imagine it's very expensive. The idea there is, considering they're both within punching distance of me, should either of them decide to take deposits and just cash them and leave, this says, okay, you know, at the end of your term, all cash, all property of town is returned, and this is your insurance policy to make sure that happens. So why it might seem duplicative to have both of them on there, if you're gonna allow both of them to have access to it, I would put both of them on there, and frankly, I would imagine it wouldn't be cost prohibitive to do so.
Do we have costs on that?
We don't, I have emailed her some to get information regarding that.
all right, if you'll make sure and follow up on that, I will.
Just to clarify, is there any conflict between the contractor agreement and the resolution adding additional treasurer duties to something that isn't mentioned in the agreement?
It's my recollection that the contract has the catch-all language in it as well as any and all other duties, as maybe described. I can double check that, but.
It does say all other duties, and additionally, part of the contract is budgetary. For our purposes, we need a treasurer.
I just want to make sure it's clear, that's all.
That's good.
Technicalities, like,
Well, yes, as we well know. Or do you have any further questions?
I move to approve resolution 2016-1018B with whereas 6 removed and the additional specific delegation of duties that the mayor read.
I would second that. Or any further discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes and the resolution will be approved with those corrections. Item E is the oath of office for John Pick. Renee, you prepared a couple oaths of office for me? Oh, thank you. You know, I never worked ahead. All right, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, John Pick,
I, John Pitt,
do solemnly swear by the ever-living God
do solemnly swear by the ever-living God
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Colorado
and of the state of Colorado
and the ordinances of the town of Green Mountain Falls,
and the ordinances of the town of Green Mountain Falls,
and faithfully perform the duties of the office
and faithfully perform the duties of the office
of interim town manager,
of interim town manager,
interim town clerk,
interim town clerk,
interim town treasurer,
interim town treasurer,
upon which I am about to enter.
for which I am about to enter.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much. All right, Renee, we have another office to take. So So raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I, Renee Price, do solemnly swear by the ever-living God
To solemnly swear that I will bear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and support the Constitution of the United States
and of the state of Colorado
and of the state of Colorado
and the ordinances of the town of Green Mountain Falls,
and the ordinances of the town of Green Mountain Falls,
and faithfully perform the duties
and faithfully perform the duties
of the office of interim deputy town clerk,
and perform the duties of interim deputy town clerk,
interim deputy town treasurer,
interim deputy town treasurer,
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. Yep, and just like that, we got him on
Careful.
the hook. Again, thank you. This will be an adventure. Item 5 is old business. And the first item is repealing the ordinance 10201B1, loitering for the purposes of begging. This is replacing the ordinance. This is the update on it. We received,
A and B kind of go together.
and yeah, and we received some correspondence from, the Saoirse attorney explaining, why they have some of the language that we had questions on prior. Board, have you had a chance to look at that letter? Do you have any questions or reasons that we should not repeal ordinance 201B1? The further explanation was regarding the loitering sections 10201B and B3. They explained further that some of the older language that we had were too vague, and under the due process clause of the Fifth Amendment, this is under a doctrine known as the void for vagueness doctrine. So essentially what this is it's cleaning up our language to make it a little more clear, perhaps a little more avoiding prosecution by the ACLU for being vague.
So this is under old business. I know this was discussed at the previous board meeting. Was that an introduction of those ordinances? And our next steps are workshop and hearing?
Our next steps will be workshop and hearing. I do want to know if the board has any questions on this explanation from Bill Greenleaf and Rashidi. Seeing none, we need to set a date for the workshop and public hearing for these ordinances.
So I move to set a workshop on November 1st and public hearing on November 15th for the ordinances that were previously introduced to repeal these sections of code.
I would second that motion. Board, is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please vote by saying aye. Any opposed? None. Item C is discussion of the process of town marshal. There is not a whole lot to report today. We had some enthusiastic response in the first 7 days, and then which has kind of fallen off. Mr. Pick and I have discussed where else we can look to advertise. I also have a question out to our resident sheriff's deputy to see where else he would suggest advertising. I spoke with El Paso County Sheriff, and this time he doesn't have anyone retiring who is interested or would be a good fit for the position. If the board would like, and if the committee members would like, we can reconstitute the same committee. Or if anyone would want to cycle off, that would be their option as well. If I don't hear from anyone, I will assume that they're going to still be on the committee and the process will move forward. we may need to extend the deadline, which right now is November 1st. And it gives us a couple of weeks to re-advertise. But for that is a question for you. If you want to keep it at November 1st, if we want to extend it a little and see if we get, what else we get? Oh, and
Can we
okay,
just do it open until filled?
well, we can do that.
Rather than always having to come back and readdress it.
It's fine with me. Also, before I forget, Sheriff Bill Elder said he will be speaking with Colorado Springs and the city of Fountain to see if they have anyone who would be interested.
How many applications do we have thus far?
Right now, we have 7, because they came in quickly for the first week, and then none. 1 a day for the first week.
Has any of them been interviewed?
3 of them we have interviewed previously.
Three.
So, I would like to move that we adjust the, closing date to open until filled. And Mr. Pick and I will work on further advertising that job.
So second.
Board, is there any further discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. At this time, we have a public hearing for 10693 Illinois. It's a short-term rental. Before I close or recess this and open the public hearing, because I am a neighbor, I will recuse myself because I don't want to jeopardize any of the findings. I will recuse myself from the table. It's up to you.
So at this time, we will recess the board meeting and open a public hearing on short-term rental application from John Bell, Lisa Bonwell for 10693 Illinois Street at, getting my time here, 7:38 p.m. Before we begin, can we read the findings into the record?
So 9 letters were sent out. 4 were returned. 3 was yes, 1 was no, and then we had an additional person attend the public hearing at the planning commission meeting, who then agreed that they were fine with. So it would end up being 4.
You got one of the 4 that,
I'm sorry.
one of the 4 that came back,
No,
that's on top of it.
it's in addition to.
And otherwise meeting the requirements of the special use?
He has met the requirements. The petitioner is here. He has additional house rules that he would like to give to you to review before making your decision. The planning commission agreed to approving this, providing that he had amended these house rules.
Yes, there was a stipulation regarding open fires was made.
Any comments from the public? Anything else you'd like to say?
Not unless there's any questions. Vacation rental, there's a request for vacation rental, 10693 is at the top of Illinois. It's previously not been rented in its history that I know of. It's been strictly family use up until this application.
And it has adequate parking.
It's got its own private parking, so access goes around 10691, and then there's a parking spot in front of it, which is off street, which is on the lot. It's
I do have a couple of questions. On the application, there's thing that the department, first let me ask you, who's managing it for you, John?
Right, I plan to manage myself, live in the Springs.
And you have another vacation rental.
That's correct, so own property at 6690 Grant, which is managed by Kim. and-
Lakeside, that's
Yeah,
why I
Lakeside
was,
Project.
that's why I was asking. Kim's not managing this one for you.
No, I haven't asked her to. And I did talk to Mel and I let her know that this process was in progress, although I probably wouldn't be asking Lakeside Cottage to manage it.
And the reason why I asked is that you'll need to get your own business license for this property, because Kim has her business license for her management of your property, the one that's under you.
Okay.
You'll need to have your own. That's why I was trying to save you some money by asking Kim
Well, I'll
this.
need-
And then you'll have to have your own Colorado Department of Revenue. Good luck.
Also, just let the record show that the planning commission recommended approval of this at their October 11th meeting. All right, there being no further public comment, I will close the hearing at 7:02 and reopen the regular board meeting.
I have a question. Your request states that this will be a rental for summer season?
Correct.
So what's the disposition during our season?
Closed.
Just close up?
Yeah, it's winter, yeah, it's been closed for the winter, so there's no water. It's been turned off.
Is it only a summer residence? I mean, is it not winter? Is it
It
not?
is winter, it's capable, but I don't want to take the extra risk.
You don't want-
And there's
you
very
don't want-
little
You don't want
vacation.
monthly tenants.
I don't want winter tenants.
Just one other question that's not related to that. This first response letter, the property owner signature, is that, who said that?
The,
Oh, address, I see.
Yeah, it is an address, so.
Was that piece of, I didn't hear you. What was that thing?
There's just no name on the property. Right,
is that right?
says sincerely.
Yeah.
All right, based on the findings we just reviewed in the public hearing, I move to approve this special use application as submitted.
Second,
Any further discussion?
one question. Sorry. Have you addressed the person who was not in favor of the?
I haven't received a comment.
You-
She has not received a copy of the response from this person.
well, we-
I can provide it to you, sure.
It's public document, so.
Can you give them a copy of that?
I think it should be addressed.
Any further discussion? All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Come on back.
We have a second public hearing tonight, it's on the 2017 draft budget, so I would recess our regular meeting and open this public hearing at 7:45. Who wants to start, since you've been here for a minute?
President, stay away long. You're only done with us. So, at the last meeting, we went through preliminary part of the budget. We have taken into account most everything that was brought up, came back with a fairly balanced budget, and for that, there's a summary sheet for everybody. But what tonight was mainly gonna be about was getting public input on what the public thinks of as priorities, and then identifying what of any of that needs to find its way into the budget. And with that being, anything that goes in, something's gotta come out. So this is mainly a public session. So with that, I'll ask for public input.
Sorry, Gail, didn't see you.
I just had a question at the last meeting. I thought it was mentioned that there was a $31,000 like surplus at the end of the year. Did I understand that correctly?
At the budget as it was put out last time, there was about $31,000 that was unaccounted for. Surplus is an extreme word. So that was unaccounted for, but there was also, if you remember in the summary, it was like a $400,000 overall deficit when you took into account all the capital. There was some operating expenses that were brought to light during the meeting. So this is
And was there a discussion about different departments using that 31,000 or?
that $31,000 was, it wasn't there. It's, it's all accounted for, whether through capital or operating expenses.
And so it just stays in the budget and doesn't go to specific departments or anything?
I think there was,
Go ahead.
don't quote me on the pennies. Revenues were approximately 31,000 above operating expenses, leaving 31,000 to allocate towards our $1.5 million of capital projects or whatever it is. So there isn't any left once we tackle the first $30,000 of highest priority capital.
So it actually is being considered for 2017. Thanks.
Matt?
At the planning commission meeting, they discussed some capital improvement projects. They had over $1.3 million set aside or earmarked for capital improvement projects, which is relatively foolish for anyone to think that we would have that kind of money to spend out of a $470,000 or $480,000 budget. If we're going to include capital improvements in the yearly budget, then I would suggest that it be a realistic figure of what might be available for capital improvements, rather than an overly optimistic outlook as to how much should or would be spent on capital improvements. Aside from that, we also have, I know that the discussion's been had about capital equipment and having a fund for capital equipment. And frankly, I think capital equipment, operating equipment for the town is probably more important than some of the, or most of the capital improvement line items. So I'd like to bring that back down closer to reality. And if we're gonna show capital improvements in the budget on any line item, it should only be a figure that may be spent, not will be spent, but may be spent. Because I'm sure that over the course of the year, we're gonna find out that there are a lot more important things to spend, that whatever is left over from the budget than some of the capital improvements that have been proposed.
So I think the first part is I don't disagree with your idea that it needs to be separate. And so as you can see on the summary sheet, now the operating expenses and the capital expenses have been separated out.
They don't have that.
Oh,
That's a
if you saw.
working draft.
Okay, so this is just working, so we're working to, to separate out the operating expenses and the capital expenses, for just that purpose.
Just like to have it closer to reality rather than.
Well, and the actual reality, I think, is real. So we have 1.5 or whatever $1 million worth of needs. And the idea is to, how far out? The CIP has been just not a static list, but a fairly static list for at least the last 2 years. We've been able to do a few things, but if we get them in front and identify where the money could come from, because the Planning Commission has identified potential sources of revenue. So if they're there and they need to happen, should we be going after trying to get that money in those?
I agree to some degree, although I will say that the capital improvements list is a wish list. But so is the potential funding sources. So, it might happen, but it might not. So, but I would like to see it a lot closer to reality than it seems to be now.
Gotcha.
Gail?
Mr. Bratton mentioned at the last meeting that he suggested the monies for any trails and improvement, expansion, et cetera, be withdrawn from the budget because the Trails Committee had never asked the town of Green Mountain Falls to pay for those efforts. And I didn't know what the disposition was on that.
He, at the last planning commission, again, said that the Trails has never asked for any money, but he would request that it be left on here as a reminder of what the Trails Committee wants to do. And in some ways, that's the same thing with all the capital improvements program. You know, we all know there's things we want to do. We have them on here, hopefully and hoping, but does that mean that we can fund it? Not straight out with my checklist.
Maybe those could be grouped together, almost under a heading of Trails Committee, so when you looked at the budget, you'd realize that that was a separate entity.
Well, and in some ways, that would be an interesting process anyway, to see what funding who we are requesting from, or who we're considering. That's a whole other discussion, but it would be an interesting way to manipulate the data. But not today. But, yeah. Are there any further comments? Seeing none, we can recess this public hearing. Yep. Closure adjourned. Time is 7:55 and we are in our regular meeting. Item 6 is public input for items not listed on the agenda. If you have something you would like to bring before the board, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Bob Collins. I represent the Colorado Springs Rod and Custom Club from Colorado Springs. I live in Colorado Springs. My purpose in coming before you tonight is to give you a bit of an update on what we did last summer in mid-July at the Thin Air Nationals event that was held here in Green Mountain Falls. Now, I'm pleased to report that we had a very successful event. We had approximately 175 cars from participants on the grounds that day, and lots and lots of visitors, people who were on site came up here just to see the cars. was really a great day. On the financial side, in part thanks to you folks, we also had a successful event. We've been concerned about the financial side of this for some time, as I spoke to you, this board last, I believe it was February, something like February, March. So we were concerned at that point. This year, because of some people who really stepped up, including the town of Green Mountain Falls, stepped up and donated back to the event. Financially, we were able to give $2,600 to Silver Key this year, which is a record high for our donation that came out of the funds for this event. And one of the things that we're doing is recognizing those people who make substantial contributions to the event. This year, we have the town council charged a fee of $950, I believe, for the use of the facilities. And then by motion of the council, donated back half of that amount to the event. And that donation constituted a major sponsorship for the event. So you are listed as the town of Green Mountain Falls, listed as a major sponsor of our event. And we'd like to commemorate that by thanking you and leaving this plaque, this framed plaque, expressing our thanks for the effort that you made to help this be a successful event. I'll leave this, and hopefully you'll find an appropriate place to hang it. I would also mention, just in passing, that we are interested in coming back. We'd love to do the same arrangement that we had this year with you, again next year in 2017. In fact, our advertising is all out now, listing Green Mountain Falls as the location of our event. So my intention is to come back with a special events permit application as soon as we can and get this arrangement made so that we can formalize the coming 2017 event. At this point, I'd be happy to receive any feedback from the town council or any suggestions as to what you'd like to see that may help us create and produce a better event.
Do you have a date set?
Yes, it is the, I'm gonna have to look. I believe it's the, I'm just gonna have to look, pardon me. It's July of 2017. And let me get there real quick. Just want to be accurate here. Okay, the event would be on the evening of July 14th. We do the pre-registration, and we had that here in town that evening this year. We're intending to do that again. July 14th on Friday, and Saturday, July 15th is the actual all-day event.
I will double check and make sure that there are no weddings scheduled.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And I'll contact you and see if we can get special events permit application process included.
How many visitors did you say?
I'm sorry?
How many visitors did you say?
We can't really do a good count of the visitors that come into town because it's an open event. We don't charge admission. So, so there's any number. I think we've estimated in previous years upwards of 1,000 people come up here to see the event.
But you had 175 cars this
We had
year?
175 cars. Typically, we have room for approximately 200 cars, and that's where we have our limit set. But so we were a little bit off of what we've done in past years, but we expect that to come back next year.
Matt?
I hate to rain on the parade, but the 400 and however many dollars the town donated was money that was do the town, and frankly, what you ended up doing was paying them to come. I realize that, they donate their, whatever they have left over. But I don't feel like that the town of Green Mountain Falls should pay for them to have their event here. If the fee is whatever the fee is, then it shouldn't change. And it shouldn't be donated back, because I think that we've gone over the fact that the cost for the event is the break-even cost for Green Mountain Falls. We don't make any money on that event. We don't make any money on any of the events that we have here. And so giving that money back is tantamount to paying them to come.
Board, actually, Renee, would you, get together our special event costs for an upcoming meeting? We need to set that on an agenda so that we have that firm for next year. All right, board, do we have any further feedback?
Thank you.
Madison?
Gail Garrett, 0 Scott Avenue. It's a pleasure to stand up here and say a thank you to the mayor and the board and Renee for all their good work. It's very noticeable. That budget that came out was probably, in my estimation, the most professional budget that has ever been done for the town of Green Mountain Falls. And I commend you for having the foresight to decide on Mr. Pick's position. And it's so nice to see him here.
Thank you.
You guys are gonna need a bigger door to get out. I think the scarecrows around town are absolutely terrific. They're going out, they're going well. They're not in traffic lanes. Between you and the Triangle Chamber of Commerce, nice having
Do we have any further public input? All right, item 7 is correspondence, and we will look at the PC draft minutes for October 11th, 2016. And the next item is reports. I have a report courtesy of Rich Bowman in our fire department. On Thursday, October 27th, there is an open house at Fire Station Number 1. There will be a question and answer session on the district bond issue. They have very kindly invited a representative from the board if one of us would want to go speak on our issues. It is an open meeting, so we would be able to, anyone could attend, and someone should probably speak about those particular bond, or those particular voting items, which is the 2% lodging increase. And I doubt if anyone is going to want to speak on the opt-out issue. But if anyone would want to go speak on the 2%, again, this is on October 27th. Also, Rich gave me a great update about the fire. Do you want me to do that? You want to do that?
Correct.
As you all know, that there was fire up here on the rampart. We were very fortunate that the wind was not coming our way, or we would have seen flames coming over the ridge. But all the agencies that worked on that worked to get it contained very quickly. As I understand it, it's still at about 14 acres. Again, we were fortunate that the wind was either moving towards the Waldo Canyon burn, which slowed it way down, or the planes came and dropped slurry, which helped line it and contain it. So thank you to all of you on the fire department and all the fire departments that aren't here. Can't thank you enough for all that hard work, and it made a big difference. We were lucky. We're not always going to be lucky, we need to be very smart about our own properties and making sure we mitigate as much as we can and keep getting the word out, keep the understory cut down, keep our dead trees cut out, and stay on top of it. But again, thank you. And that is my report. David?
I just, in back on what you were saying about the mitigation fires, I would really appreciate it if the residents of Green Mountain Falls were aware of windy, gusty days when they want their comfort of their fire pits to really pay attention. That's all. It's a very dangerous situation. And I noticed the ordinances, the way they're written, lets you have pretty much whatever you want on your property, as long as you have the proper clearances. I just would wish that there was no fire pit or no open fires being allowed in the non-call at any time. It's just my opinion.
Cameron?
Just to add on that, we are in a stage 1 open burning restriction. Just to remind people, the town does not follow the county stages. We have our own ordinances that define what's permissible and prohibited during different stages of restriction. And so maybe, Renee, can we get those posted at the post
The
office?
restrictions?
The restrictions list. Yeah.
I just noticed some of them are vague, that's all. It says that you have, we're gonna ban one, but,
Right.
and you can have this, and you can have that, and it's just scary.
Right. Anything else?
That's it.
Michael? Dave?
Nothing.
Tyler?
No report.
What? Chris? Renee?
I'm taking notes.
While Renee's taking notes and catching up, we didn't have a chance to introduce Tiffany Els. She was sitting back in the corner back there. She's our volunteer who is here from Charis. Charis. She's here a couple times a week. She's learning about government, and she's helping out in the office with some of the filing and desk work. So we're glad to have volunteers all the time. Is that enough? Did you take enough?
No, you made me right again.
Okay.
Gil Garrett, this is for you. You've been asking for the pool figures. So I finally figured them out.
12.
The income ended up being $13,131.50. The expenditures were $15,312.61. So it was a deficit of $21.81. So.
Hey, I did my part. I was
Cheap labor.
Renee, does that count any public works time to open the pool, close the pool?
No,
Okay.
it includes the cost that was spent in winterizing it.
Hard costs,
Right.
Right.
But not the salaries from,
not the labor and effort from public works in support of
correct.
the recreational facility. Okay.
I'm done.
Well, Matt, welcome.
I don't know if you'll say that, so hold on to that. You guys are on the ACLU radar again.
Oh, boy.
This time, less to do on it. It has to do with the recent House Bills 16, 13, 11. They tried to pass something in 14 that said you can't jail people because they can't pay. So courts were going around that by making each, if they set people up on a payment plan, they'd make each court date of payment. And if you didn't pay, then they set a warrant out for your arrest. And that didn't directly go against it. So in 16, they came back and said, no, really, you cannot jail people for not being able to pay. So the ACLU sent every municipal court that I know of a nice letter that said, we were really serious in 14 when we said it. Now we're very serious in 16 when we said it, that you may not jail people for inability to pay. I will say that the warrants that are outstanding right now in Green Mountain Falls Municipal Court are for failure to appear, which are not. It's a really close one because they say it's failure to pay or failure to appear to pay. But these were all first appearances, so they are paying money in theory. So we've got one that we need to just clean up and make sure that we've got everything in line. But since you don't really have an active municipal court right now, it's probably not so much of an issue. So I have the.
Is that an ordinance change that we need to affect?
No, that's a training change with the judge. So if any of you want to go train the judge, by all means. I know the judge is aware of this as well. I'm sure he got at least 2, maybe 3 letters, so all the same, just different places. The other outstanding item I have is the short-term rental ordinance form and ordinance revamp. I have what was sent. I have the draft ordinance in the form. So my suggestion is that if the board would like, would just be to put it in ordinance form and send it to you so you have something that you're familiar with looking at, so you would know what it looks like in your book or online, now that you're online. So if the board would like, I'm happy to do that. And that's all I have.
Please. Matt?
I ask, how does the court, or maybe more importantly, the ACLU determine someone's ability to pay?
Well, there is an inquiry into whether you have the ability. So there's, it begs the question of whether you have the ability or whether you're willing or whether you're able. They used to say, well, you can either pay a $100 fine or go spend 3 nights in jail. And they're starting to say that even that's getting too close to saying you can pick from being jailed or not pay. So the people that were close on money, let's took jail time. So that was the undertow of a 2012 bill, and you got 14 where it said, look, we don't want to put someone in jail and for being unable to pay. So you really do need to look at the finances. And so after the court assesses the fee, there's a whole other process to go through and say, okay, bring tax returns, bring costs, bring hard fixed numbers. Let's sit down and look. I don't see that here. It's still the cheapest place to speed in Colorado. Just don't tell your friends that. But when it has become an issue of, look, I really can't pay this fine, give me the points, that's fine, but I just really can't pay it. You look at other alternatives such as community service. What can you do to make it right without monetary? That still hasn't been frowned upon yet. But this essentially says, look, judge, no more setting up a bench warrant for saying, here, we've set up these payment plans, come in and make the payment on the 5th of every month. If you don't show up, if you can't pay, show up. And that's what our form does say. If you haven't made payment on this day, you need to show up.
Basically, there's no debtor's prison then.
Right.
No physical debtor's prison. I don't know. They tend to regulate courts and not banks, but that's what they are. Now it just prevents the court from, if you don't show up to the second payment plan, that second date, and you don't show up to pay, we can't issue a bench warrant. So my suggestion then is that the town think about and maybe direct your town clerk to not allow payments. Make it due when it's due. Take care of it here, because once you leave, the warrant system is really going to become a non-issue. It's one of the things we worked with most recently was doing the default system, which means if you don't show up, you lose. So show up, deal with it, let's move forward. If you don't show up and you blow it off, that's fine. We just send it to the state, and then when you go to get your new license, it says, nope, go back up to Green Mountain Falls, pay your ticket, and then come back down. So they're real happy by the time they get back there. And at that point, legally, if you don't show up, you waive your right for any defense. So at that point, you don't even have to hold court. The only issue is to pay the fine that's assessed. So it may sound unfair, but it gets rid of the people that play the game and extend payments and don't pay, and then extend payments and don't pay. Don't pay, that's fine. You can deal with it later, you'll pay later. So that's a lot of the undertow for the default system that really should make this a non-issue, because you guys really will get away from bench warrants. So they'll all be 10 and 15-year-old bench warrants before too long.
We actually have a couple of benchmarks out there from 2012, 2013. So
I'm not editing you.
I'll double check and make sure if I see your email.
It's not that I know of. We don't have the state list though, that's way longer.
All right, anything else?
No, that's all the good news I can give you.
All right, thank you. Richard? Nothing? John?
Yeah, two things, Mayor. First of all, three. First of all, I'd like to express my appreciation to the board for allowing me to serve you in this capacity. And I look forward very much to working here in the next 6 months, and hopefully we can make some progress. Second thing, RJ had an idea the other day that we talked about, and we'd like to run this by the board. What he would like to be able to do is kind of pre-qualify some people so that he can run them through a process, make sure they're qualified and able, and then if, for some reason, he needs to call upon them on an emergency basis or something, then he's got somebody lined up that he can call on and call into service, as opposed to, having to start the process right in the middle of a snowstorm or a flood or some other disaster, some other emergency. So if the board is, now it's not going to have any fiscal impact on the town because, we'd be using already appropriated funds, but, we're just in the event is really what we're asking for.
I think it's a good idea. Board?
Yeah, like a bench of on-call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just have a roster there.
For years, we had an approved contractors list. And it's pretty much the same thing. So.
I think that's-
They knew they had somebody they could rely on.
Yeah. and
Sure, it's the same purpose.
If RJ's comfortable with them, that would satisfy me. Board, I would make a motion that we approve that RJ can pre-qualify some employees for a contractors list.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Would that be contractor or employee?
Well, it would be an
I
employee.
think we'd have complete direction over their execution of their duties.
Correct.
Yeah, I think for insurance purposes, I'd probably classify them as a
Part-time
as well,
employee.
so that you can add them to.
So instead of a contractors list, a pre-qualified
Correct.
part-time
And I may
employees
even
list.
visit the thoughts of like a substitute teacher, instead of having an hourly wage, I can say, look, if I need you for half a day, it's $80, or if I need you for a whole day, it's, $150,
Well, I
something
think,
like that. That way, because you're gonna have a hard time getting somebody to come in for $20, for 2 hours, but if you can say, look, hey, I'd like to have you on call, and if I call you, you're guaranteed you're gonna get $80. You may have
well, let's do this.
I'm not just throwing those numbers out, just.
No, and that's what I'm saying, is I like the idea, and I think we move to approve the pre-qualification, but come back to us with some numbers.
Okay.
So we can work that into the budget.
Sure.
So,
And kind of a framework for what that looks like.
right.
What are the qualifications?
And some of what you would be looking for them to do. I hear snowstorm because that's what we're looking at
Right,
coming
yeah,
down. But you could look at that further out too, things in the summer. So think about what else you would like besides people who can plow snow
Absolutely.
and bring that back. So a motion would be to allow RJ to pre-qualify part-time temporary employees. Which is seconded. We had some discussion on that we need some things brought back.
What does pre-qualify mean?
Well, that means they're gonna have to get the background checks, everything pre-approved by the board. Would they need to be approved by you?
Well, I'd like to see that you're satisfied with their skills first
Okay.
of all.
All right.
And then we can pursue the further as far as employment and background, the next step. But I would like to see that you're happy that they can do the job.
Okay.
If we're listed as employees, though, do we immediately, even though they're not working, have to then up our workers' compensation and everything?
It's wage-based.
Yeah, and if we're listing them as temps,
Even as temps, I mean, with unemployment or with, service insurance and stuff like that.
well, right now I think all we're,
Increase.
all we're doing is developing a list of potentials. But I can't answer how that's gonna affect our workers' comp.
We'll look into the effect that it would have on all the insurances.
I'm good with it, but I'm just want to make sure that we know that there may be some hidden costs to doing that.
Yeah, we do want to know all those. All right,
So RJ is gonna solicit some candidates, compile a list, and run them through skills assessment and background check process, and bring those back to the board. That's what.
along with our,
We have a manager, bring the manager.
Well, that's- Yes.
Let's not make it work, you know.
yeah, there's a job for you. So take those to our manager.
Yeah.
But along with, let's have some report about some dollar figures and responsibilities and so forth.
So are you asking me to physically assess their skills here? Pre-employment? Or we have permission to have some temporary people, I can pay them 2 hours to, I don't know, I
How
don't
were you
understand where you're
assessed?
going with that, exactly.
Well, you just got hired, how were you assessed?
I was assessed by coming, a pre-interview with Jim, which, I mean, it was just a volunteer time. I mean,
And I think part of it is gonna
spent
be,
half a day.
I mean, if you're looking for people who can run backhoes, I'd like to know that you can have physically seen them.
Right.
And know that you're comfortable with that. If you're looking for somebody who can wield a shovel, you probably don't have to do that.
Yeah, I'd suggest that they're licensed for what you anticipate they will be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. All right.
Motion.
There is a motion and a second on the table, and we have had discussion. Board, do you have any further questions about that?
Yeah, if somebody wants to cut a tree down, they have to have their own insurance and. they have to be-
No, they would be under the town.
I think kind of step one is to frame it and see what that looks like. I don't see, do you have an immediate need for getting bodies in there, or are you just kind of putting this program?
No, I'd just like to have it, some
So
people.
let's
in
do
place.
it right.
Flesh out the program first.
Play the course first, figure out what it looks like.
All right, that sounds good. There's,
One other thing that I wanted to mention, today we had a meeting with some representatives from the El Paso County Public Works Department to talk about the Belvedere Avenue project. One of the issues that came up, and we wanted to get some consensus or a feeling of the temperature on the part of the board with regard to widening the pavement and also adding a pedestrian walkway, marked walkway, or just a wider pavement, maybe without marking it for pedestrians, but it would make it more pedestrian friendly. This had been brought up before, when in talking with the folks from El Paso County, this had been brought up before, but I think they felt that the person who brought that up is no longer on the board. And so I don't know who that was. I just wanted to see if we could get some clarification from the board on that issue.
I suspect that the dollars may drive the decision on that more than preference. Belvedere Avenue widening is split up into two phases. One's an A-list project on PPRTA, one's a B-list project, which we may or may not get to. And I don't know, we have not gotten construction quotes on what just resurfacing what we have would cost. We do know what amount of money we have to work with.
Yeah.
I suspect we may find it will take everything we've got and more just to resurface what we have,
Right.
let alone the extra square footage to widen it.
Yeah, they were
Yeah, our discussion was, we physically went out there and the discussion was widening where we could and where necessary due to drainage and addressing what type of curbage we were gonna put in there, if any, so.
Yeah.
To try to keep some of those costs within that parameter.
And they were looking for that kind of as a design parameter. And then if it turns out that, we have to narrow it down or cut it back down, then for cost purposes, we certainly can. But they just wanted to know whether the town was interested in having that additional width or not.
okay, before we go on, I need to do some housekeeping. We had a motion and a second.
I'm sorry.
We didn't have a we did not take a vote. We can let so the motion was to go ahead and let RJ pre-qualify. The ramifications are if you vote no, that's okay, because we've already instructed him to bring back a further fleshed out report. So let's either go ahead and allow him to pre-qualify, that's the motion on the table. All those in favor of what was saying aye,
Aye.
and those opposed?
No,
I would actually vote no, because I want to see that fleshed out. But the motion passes, so you are set to pre-qualify employees. Now, that is cleaned up, and the discussion at hand is the asphalt work. Do we have anything further to add on that with PPRTA? We just need to see dollars before we know what we can decide on that.
My understanding, not having been in the conversation, is it's probably important for the engineers to figure out what direction to go. And I would say, go ahead and estimate out the pedestrian walkway there, because that's our ultimate wish. And then, as suggested, we can narrow that down if budget becomes an issue. And I think by past experience, by working with El Paso County and doing a cooperative switch of funding, we may be able to find some huge savings and ability to afford more than we typically could do if we took the burden of doing projects on our own. And so with that, I think we should plan and hope for what we really wish is the ultimate design, and then if we need to scale back later, we can. Additionally, I think that beyond the physical paving of the right-of-way, beyond that, we need to consider the lines and what that delineation is going to look like, because that will really drive how much space will be available as well.
Because for safety reasons, if we possibly can have pedestrian marked on one side or another, it would definitely be safer for those driving and hiking, but we need to see if there's room. And it would be nice to have them designated in one lane.
Yeah, and one of the concerns was there are several places on Belvedere that we are constrained without, physically not able to widen.
Right.
So it would have, we suggested maybe even some signage in lieu of the pedestrian walkway itself, or even some narrower roads ahead
Right.
signage, so that they know.
On that project, I've not looked at the right-of-way issues. How much of a problem is right-of-way? Is it significant, or is it a few choke points?
In places, it's significant if there is an issue with the property owner, because there are places that their property pins are in the middle of the road.
Yep. And where I was going with that is if there's half a dozen requests the town could make to those property owners to deed that over to the town, that might be a request that is minimal cost, but we clean that up and would open up those design possibilities with minimal cost. If we have to go and acquire those rights of way,
Right.
that's very cost prohibitive for this project, and would probably eat up most of the cost of the construction money in that. But my sense is, let's first ask, hey, your pin's in the middle of the road, can we line this out a little better to achieve the greater project, create better road safety for you as a neighbor and a residents on this road?
Well, speaking of El Paso County and asphalt work, and you were speaking with them, did they give you any encouragement about helping with any of our patching projects?
We did not mention that. They didn't mention it either.
Okay.
Right.
On that note, if I can interject, anytime we want something like patching apparatus or line apparatus or any specialty equipment, even asphalt equipment that the RTA has acquired through and is held as by Colorado Springs or El Paso County, it's more Colorado Springs that has these assets. It's almost an open invitation that we need to be aware of, that just for the personnel costs and the material costs, really the operating costs of that equipment, they will bring that up and utilize that for us. So
That's huge.
that's very huge.
That's
I spoke with one of the people delivering material down there today, and their only suggestion was go by coal patch, so if we do have access to that would be very nice.
I can put you in touch with some of the people that can help facilitate that.
Great.
Thank
Probably
you.
needs to happen at pretty high levels first.
Okay.
Well, I have been talking to Sally a little bit, so at least she's aware that we have that situation. So if you guys can coordinate that, if you need me to do anything, you let me know.
Because the patchwork, it came back way over budget, so, I mean, we've just started to do some, of what we have, to fill in, like, especially on Belvedere. So, yeah, that's one of the things that we were hoping for, but it's just way out of,
Probably the 2 points of contact, one for the county would be Jim Reed. And then one for the city would be Travis Easton.
Travis Easton?
Matt, you had a comment?
Yeah, maybe, getting back to the right of way on Belvedere. You're likely to find there are more encroachments on the right of way on Belvedere than probably any other street in town. And, so that, the actual widening of the road may not be as big a problem. Finding out what the encroachments are may be a hassle. But I can give you a starting point.
RJ, I would, and John, I would encourage you to reach out to the utility providers and make sure they don't have any capital improvements going on, so you can coordinate that.
Yeah, that came up today.
You don't
Good
want
point.
cutting in your
No.
right,
asphalt.
right, we're gonna, if we have anything that we needed to do prior to the repaving, I'm open to suggestions. We talked about checking the culverts out, and maybe even doing the cameras, make sure we don't have to replace any of those before we pave, so. Any
Yeah, and of course, you have Jim as a good source there.
Yep.
Anything else?
Unless anybody on the board says we don't want to do that, I think we can get back to El Paso County and tell them that's the direction we want to go.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your roads look great, AJ, you did a good job.
Thank you.
Smooth as glass.
Yeah, we're about halfway done with the roads in town. Had an issue with the water truck. We tentatively have the chemicals scheduled to be here on the 28th, I believe it is, next Thursday. And if not, then the 31st. Try to start to apply those.
For clarity, those are hardening, road
Yes.
hardening chemicals?
Correct.
All right, if there are no further comments, this meeting is adjourned at 8:34.
Oh, okay.
And I got one.
Hi, I'm Gina Tron, ex-wife.
Oh, okay.
And I was here when you were.
Plethora of problems. these cameras aren't active now, they were active.
I know, it's So we went
Just there, in town.
started at 7. We went 3.5 hours, then went into overtime. And Wisconsin went screaming
Thank you,
So I stayed for 3.5 hours.
Yes.
It was a downpour, severe weather. Cars, we were parked on the campus, grass. It turned into a mud hole. About a dozen cars were stuck in the mud. We had to walk 2 miles back. We got home at 1 o'clock.